So this is public, right? Is that right? Okay.
Oh, you're blowing up the town. Please.
James and Faz will now take us through the Tanaka update. Thank you very much.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much, Chair. So hopefully this will be a good news story, but basically it's our regular update on Tanako and all things Tanako and how it's progressing. We did forward you the slides, I believe, before the meeting. We've got 15 slides, I think, to go through, and probably won't take much more than about 15 to 20 minutes, and then probably best to do QA. But if you really, really want to interrupt and ask me questions on the way, that's absolutely fine as well, whatever you choose. All right. So briefly today, we're going to talk primarily about an update on the CAB MOB, or Civic Admin Building, Municipal Office Building redevelopment, and the approach that we've taken for the Town Hall front of house facilities, and a brief update on some of the other Tanako projects as well. Next steps is a paper to council on the 12th of June with the heads of terms for the negotiations we're doing with Precinct Properties on the CAB MOB site building. And also next steps is initiating the front of house part of the Town Hall project. So, as I said, this is hopefully a good news session. We're on track to reopen Tanako Precinct within 12 months. We are making good progress. We have strengthened, by March 2026, we will have strengthened Te Matapihi and reopened it. We will have strengthened City Gallery, the basement itself, so the actual square in the middle there of Tanako the strengthening will be complete, and new services installed for surrounding buildings. The redevelopment of the plaza and the landscaping, etc., will be done. The CAB and MOB demolition will be complete and the site cleared. And we'll also be starting at that point on we'll actually probably be about halfway through, in fact, the front of house facilities, which I'll come to. The practical completion of the Town Hall will be achieved by July 26th, so that's when all of the construction team is completed, everything's done and dusted, basically. So that's approximately 8 months earlier than when we came in October 2023. You probably remember that infamous moment where we said that we had some trouble with the project and needed a little bit more money in order to get it over the line. And that's when we did some replanning and rebaselining of costs and timeframes. So basically what we're now saying is we'll be able to overachieve and bring in that completion date through to July 26, about 8 months earlier. And also it will be able to return some money to council as well. Te Matapihi will be delivered on time and budget. Practical completion again for the entirety of the building, for the main building will be in August 25. There is the work being done on floors 3 and 4. That practical completion of that is, I think it's time for November, December 25. But the main building, the library as you know it, or the old library as you know it, will be done in August 25.
Old library, you mean the old library?
Correct. As you know, we're all moving to 68 Jervois Quay, as Karipura has updated you in the past about, beginning at the end of this year, and that will obviously relocate us back close to Tanako Civic Square, and the interface between 68 Jervois Quay across Harris Street and into Tanako, that's another piece of work that is coming under the umbrella of this program as well, so making that all seem complete and integrated is a piece of the work that we're doing in this project too. And then finally we have the Tanako Master Development Plan, which you're aware of, which provides a blueprint and options to complete the precinct over the next couple of years, given funding and other decisions that you'll make around that. So, Town Hall front of house and CAB MOB development. As I mentioned, October 23, Council agreed to increase funding for the Town Hall to $329.1 million, noting the final cost of the project depended on a couple of possible scenarios, including the ability for us to partner with a private developer across the Cab Mob site, which potentially could include front of house facilities, and also our ability to align completion of the Town Hall with any front of house facilities and avoid temporary works. So there were some uncertainties around our plan back in October 2023, but what we did is we fully funded all the different potential outcomes so that we were never ever going to shock anyone again with asking for more money for the Town Hall. So obviously we've been very focused on ways of avoiding the cost, particularly of temporary works, and methods that we could get the front of house facilities done in a time frame that enables us to open the Town Hall. And as hopefully we've made you aware of the last few updates we've done on Tanako, we've focused a number of improvements around our project management to shore up the project and improve confidence in its delivery. And just on that, what are some of those things that we did? We changed the way that we were governing the program, and we basically integrated one whole program of activities around Tanako together, and I think that that has been very helpful in terms of us enabling us to set priorities and gain efficiencies across all the different projects. We strengthened project leadership, including bringing in RCP as a third-party consultant to help us with the project team. And we have increased frequency of these reports back to you as well, so hopefully being more transparent and keeping you better connected to how things are progressing. We also did an external review of the program and costs via RCP, and there was a set of recommendations, and we've been reporting consistently on how we're achieving against those. We did an external legal review of the contract implementation for the Town Hall, and we have reviewed the program frequently against tenant and the needs of the buildings once they're complete. So basically, if you like, the client or the user needs for the building, and making sure that those were planned in and we would achieve them.
James, sorry, if you're okay to take questions as we go?
Sure. Yeah.
So I have a question just about that, and partially it is in the context of, a certain other contracting failure that we're discussing. But what is the principal difference between the before and after? In other words, the regime that you've instituted now in terms of contractor management versus what was in place previously?
So, in essence, what we've done is work started on the Tanako precinct on an isolated project-by-project basis. So the first project to kick off was the Town Hall. And I think as we've reported previously, there were ways that we approached the contracting of the consultants and builders on the Town Hall that we learned some lessons from. So when the next project kicked off, which was Te Matapihi, we applied those lessons and made those arrangements quite differently. And I could probably ask one of our experts to go through that in detail with you if you're interested from a procurement perspective, what the differences are between those particular approaches that we took between those two projects. When we got to October 23, we knew very clearly that the way we'd approached Te Matapihi was being effective, and the way that we had approached Town Hall wasn't. And so what we did then is we in essence extended our approach from Te Matapihi across the other projects, across Town Hall and across all the remaining projects within the Tanako precinct, and we followed the same pattern ever since.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know what other people in the room think, but I personally would actually really welcome the opportunity to have a later briefing just on the sort of contractor management, because I think it is obviously it's a critical kind of governance responsibility on our part that we're aware of what's working and what isn't, so that we can understand what best practice is. So it would be something we should just sort of note for future reference, basically. But that's a very useful explanation, but thank you for that.
Okay, so the next slide was really in more detail about the Town Hall completion. So yeah, as we were just saying, it was a difficult and high-risk project, and I think that the approach that we took to the contracts up front perhaps didn't quite take into account the amount of risk that was involved in that project. It's taken longer and it's cost a lot more than anybody anticipated at the outset or would have liked. The changes have been made. The net of it is we've been able to pull back from that rebaselining in October 23, where we said we probably wouldn't be finished until 2027, to the practical completion about 8 months earlier. And we also should be returning between $15 and $17.5 million of that $329 million that you committed in October 23. So that basically, that number, as you can see on the chart down the bottom, includes $12.5 million for some of the temporary front of house facilities work, which won't be required, and also some savings on the core build work as well, between $2.5 and $5 million. And we still have some remaining project risk to iron out there before we can close that number out completely for you. But we are obviously hoping to return the 5 rather than the 2.5. The front of house work that we are intending to do will enable us to coincide the front of house facilities with the town hall opening, which obviously avoids the $12.5 million for the temporary works, and we'll complete the front of house within the budget that was set in October 23 of $28 million. So just a quick recap on Cab Mob, where we were in April 24. We talked to you about entering negotiations with Precinct Properties to redevelop that site. The focus for that redevelopment has very much been based around the objectives of the Tanako Civic Precinct framework to reactivate the area as a cultural and creative hub on a 24/7 basis, so night and day, and if possible, deliver town hall front of house requirements. A key driver of the project was to deliver those front of house requirements so as not to impact the town hall. That's become more difficult as I guess two things have happened. One, the town hall project is sped up and is finishing earlier. And secondly, I think there's a reality around the economic climate for development organisations in Wellington, and that creates a level of uncertainty as to exactly when that project may kick off. And that therefore creates uncertainty around when it might be available to provide front of house for the town hall, hence us choosing to take the other approach. So finding a solution that meets our timing and funding constraints has been a key focus of our conversations with Precinct, and so that's what we have determined, that we will in essence end up with 2 buildings. There'll be a small addition to the town hall which will provide the front of house facilities, and there'll be a large building on the remainder of the mob and cab sites with on the assumption that Precinct continues and we do heads of terms with them, will provide those things that we were looking for in terms of the Tanako frameworks, retail, hospitality, activation, etc. of that space. The front of house facilities that we've designed up and costed within the $28 million will be available at the completion of the town hall. The design decisions for those front of house facilities have been made in order to maximise build efficiency and timing constraints. So, for example, reusing the foundations of the mob site and using a lightweight mass timber structure that enables us to build that front of house facility quickly and within the budget that has been set. And by doing that, it enables us to then return the $15 to $17.5 million of the overall budget to council. So where does that leave us then with Precinct? So we are continuing to work on a development agreement which will reflect that arrangement. It will cover project and operational dependencies between our front of house piece on the town hall and the Precinct building. So for example, things like shared basement, building servicing, ground floor connections and consenting. And make sure that we do bring to life the Tanako vision and the activation that we wanted in Tanako and the ground lease arrangements as well. And our intent is to have those heads of terms ready for you on the 12th of June. And just kind of recapping on this approach, the benefit really is that it enables us to have certainty for town hall opening because we're not reliant on a third-party developer who would need to secure anchor tenants in order to make it an economically viable project for them in the time frame that we're looking for. It also gives us full discretion over the design and fit out of the building, and it provides flexibility for the third-party precinct to utilise that development spaces as they see fit within the context of our Tanako framework requirements. So what does that mean? The town hall will end up looking like, here is a picture from Wakefield Street. So you can see the edge of the town hall on the right-hand side with the front of house facilities constructed and depicted in the middle of that picture. Te whare whakaroaka. And that's a daytime view of the same thing. So you can see it's basically, there isn't an internal picture, artist impression, but in essence it's the entranceway and front of house and facilities and services for everyone who is coming in and out of the town hall and enjoying that wonderful investment that we've made in that facility. This is a view from the Tanako Civic Square side. So you can see the town hall with the West Plaza extended out into those front of house facilities. And then a day view of the same thing. Would you like to ask a question now, Councillor? Or?
Yeah, it's just so, the plaza, that's the sort of corrugated bit, so is that the temporary or long-term temporary bit? Bunnings good looking as that. I thought the front of house stuff was temporary.
Temporary stuff.
No. We're avoiding the temporary. So this will be the finished front of house.
And so that green stuff, is that steel or?
Aluminium.
Use your mics just because some people are online.
I'm using my mic.
Oh.
My gentle voice, like my personality. So is that steel?
Is aluminium.
Okay.
It's aluminium cladding.
Councillor Randall?
I just had a question, which I can, so just in terms of the numbers and the savings and this sort of stuff, going back and looking at the October 23 reports, the budget amounts included contingency. So that was actually the budget, project budget plus contingency in terms of the amounts. Is that right?
So yes, in so much as the contingencies covered areas that we knew about, but were also couldn't be finalised in terms of pricing.
Look, I know, and it was, as you outlined, it was a very high-risk project, and even officers were even then nervous that the contingency was sufficient. So I respect that. I guess wanted to maybe clarify whether or not these savings were really unused contingency in terms of that, you thought you might need to have this money, or is that really just the savings just from not having to put up the temporary facilities because now you've brought forward the front of house stuff to be built, fully built and connected to the town hall when the rest of the building is finished and ready for opening?
Yeah, certainly the 12.5 is, exactly, to your second point. The core build savings, it's difficult to say that is contingency in that the contingency is worked out across many different items. So some of those items come in a little over, some of them come in a little under. That was the level of uncertainty that we had back then. And so the contingency has been assigned to those items where needed be as we've gone through the project. I guess in some ways you could say yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being a little bit pedantic in the sense, but it's just nice to know what the budget was versus the contingency because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that the project is coming in under the total amount of money that we've got funded. I just want to get a bit of an understanding of how much was over and under maybe a bit later on, but I'll take it offline.
Sure, and we can show you all of the numbers as they've tracked through every month as well.
Councillor Pannett?
Can I just clarify, the terms were on the agenda for March. Does that mean you're bringing this to us twice, or is it just the 12th of June? Or June?
12th of June, correct.
Okay. obviously I'm not an architect, but this is the most important part of our city. Is this the final version of what the designers have come up with? And also, what is it going to be office space in the big building?
The next couple of slides give you a floor plan, so maybe we should show you that. Yeah.
But that is the final design?
No, Councillor, this is the concept design, so we could cost and discuss with the engineers, structural engineers. There's a lot of technicalities.
Okay, but it will look beautiful, is my question.
It may look, I am not saying that this is not going to be the final design. When it goes through the process, of course, we have consenting processes, urban design panels. The people who are architect would comment on that, and they will make the decision whether this is appropriate or not.
Can I ask a question, Tim? You got me on the list.
Oh, okay, Sarah, sure.
Are we going to, I was very confused by the Wakefield side. Are we going to see any of the old building? I just wasn't sure what I was looking at.
So the picture on the screen right now is the Wakefield Street side. So
Yeah.
what you can, like in that particular drawing there, you can't see in essence the old town hall piece, right? The old 1904 building. You can't quite see it because
But it's there.
It's 100%.
This isn't
it's there,
covering it
yes,
up.
100% it's there. Yes, correct. Yes. It's just the way that that picture's been drawn. Yeah.
I'm pretty aghast that we're going to have this without any sort of like other options. Or is this is this what's going to happen?
We're trying to work within the budget that's been set. So, and the ability to reuse elements of that mob site, like the foundations, and the size of it, as in being not particularly big, enables us to. It reduces some of the pressure that would otherwise be on from a cost perspective in terms of the structure if the structure was much bigger. So it's a structure that enables to work within the budget set and leverage some of the elements of the space that is left after the demolition.
But this is the first that I've seen of this particular kind of idea. We did have a different idea when we were having a linking building. Is there any flexibility in this design, or is it this is what it's going to be?
As I mentioned before, this is a concept design, so the design will evolve as we go through the process. This building is connecting to the town hall and provide the front of house facilities for the town hall, including the toilets and the bar and the lobby area. But if you're I am not sure, Councillor, what is the problem. If the design of the building, the outside of the building, again, that would evolve as we go through the process.
Okay.
So
I guess it's we've spent a lot of money on this building, so I don't think it's inconsequential what this looks like. That's all.
Councillor Opanowitz.
Is there a gap between the town hall and the precinct building?
Yeah, there'd be a service lane. Yeah.
Okay, will that have public access as well? Because I'm just conscious of entry and exit points.
No.
No?
This would be a service lane and also a fire gap between the two buildings. So it would be only used for servicing of the building and also the rattle space between the two buildings, so an earthquake gap basically. The reason that we decided not to have a laneway between the precinct building and our building is that it will be shaded and dark, so it will be a dingy laneway, so it wouldn't be an appropriate, nice looking. Pardon? Yeah.
No, he's
We're putting the gas lights back.
The gap between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, if you see the floor plans, I can explain what's the.
My follow-up question is that is if we don't have that access way, and we're coming in from Wakefield Street, will we revert back to a 2-lane road? Because I'm just thinking of majority of people coming in.
Yes, I think we're discussing different lanes. The lane on the streets will go back to the original. Basically, it will be a 2-way street. The road will be it used to be it will be the same as it used to be.
But the entranceway is on that road to get in.
Interesting. So imagine that Wakefield Street, the 2 lanes, is coming along in front of this picture. Yep, that'll still be the case. Yep. So in essence, where the mob building is, that's gone, and so there'll be another building there. So with the same street frontage, etc.
So we're going to have a pedestrian crossing over this road to
Yes. I mean, currently we
Whereas at
have
the
it.
moment, correct? Yeah.
come in? Okay, so when an event's on, everybody's going to come in through this entranceway.
This way or through the square.
through the square.
Councillor Chung.
This annex here, is that going to be on land that the precinct were actually going to use for their development?
Yeah, so part of the negotiations with Precinct was determining what size of piece of land they would be using for their development, and obviously there's a lot of that's to do with what they can make work and what they would like.
Okay. Ideally, and this goes back to someone else's question, is that this annex, do you think that should actually match the town hall or should it match the precinct building? Because if it looks quite different from what the precinct development looks like, and obviously looks different from the town hall, then it's going to look a little bit like an annex that was shoved in there. So can we actually get it to match architecturally the same as one of those two, but we don't know what the precinct development is going to be like?
Fair enough. One of the things that I was educated on during the discussions around the City to Sea Bridge was the eclectic nature of all of the architecture in Tanako Civic Square. So I'm not sure, I'm not an architect, and Fast can probably answer this better than me, but I'm not sure that trying to make it match is necessarily the right thing to do. But
To your point, I think there is quite a lot of requirements from a consenting point of view that the heritage architecture of Town Hall is respected. So if the heritage architects are not happy with the design of this building, it won't be consented. So we are very aware of that as the owners and designers and builders of this building, that we have to go through our regulatory system, and we need to make sure that they are satisfied with the quality of the architecture, of not necessarily matching but respecting the heritage of Town Hall. In terms of what happens between the alignment of this building with the precinct properties, as we go through the negotiation, we will discuss the design of the building and how that's going to align with the design of the building. So we have some form of a harmony between all this building, but not necessarily alignment or duplication of architecture.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
So when we were looking at Precinct doing these facilities on behalf, there was obviously some financial benefit to the council in doing that. We're going to do this ourselves, saving the temporary works, but I assume that means there's some financial opportunity for us in CAB at Mob still. Are we just, if they were going to build 28 million of facilities on behalf for us, now we're doing it ourselves. What do we get out of Precinct doing CAB and Mob?
If we relied on Precinct or a third party to do that for us, we would pay for it in different ways. We would be paying a leasing cost for whatever space that we required in that building on an ongoing basis for the life cycle of the town hall. So quite a significant commitment. What this enables us to do is still have a large space on the remaining mob and CAB sites, and for us to negotiate a deal with Precinct.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just trying to understand what upsides of the deal might be in terms of, basically just dollars. What are the upsides of the deal with Precinct? Would it be a ground lease, that we might have an advantageous ground lease that they, that's what I want to try and draw out without you preempting too much. But what's the financial opportunity for ratepayers by having that development?
So that land, the ground lease of that land comes as a price that Precinct needs to pay us. So there's the first aspect of it. And also Precinct is capable of building something there that probably we are not. Basically, and also they pay rates and also attract a lot of employment and economic.
So rates, ground lease and activation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Young.
So if Precinct you know, they'll obviously want to have a tenant in before they build. So in the meantime, rather than just having empty sections, is it possible to have a park where the park used to be?
There is a requirement on the resource consent conditions, not necessarily a park, but an activation of the remainder of the site. That depends on the time that precinct needs to find the anchor tenant for the 50% of the building. So there is a time period that we need the rest of the site to build the annex, so it will be a construction site for a while. After that, there is a resource consent condition that we need to activate the site. The activation of the site can be food trucks or containers or
Grass?
Light landscaping. Trees and grass, as soon as you tell me, is 4,000 per square meter. So it would need to come back to council to require that budget for designing a temporary park on that site. However, activation is something that we can actually negotiate with precinct to activate the site until they start their project, to make sure that site is not hoarded or basically left vacant.
Yeah.
And again, that's a regulatory requirements that we have to comply with.
Thank you. So just on this picture, this is looking at it from the square, is it, this view?
Correct.
So if you go back to the other side, looking at it from Wakefield Street, on the right, looked like a budgie cage. Yeah, see the budgie cage on the right. And then, so when you're looking at it from Wakefield Street, you can't see the town hall.
No. So that's literally just the artist's impression. So,
The artist.
sorry. Sorry. Yeah. But where it ends on the right-hand side, if it didn't end there, you would see the beautiful town hall, right? And that piece that I think you just referred to as a bird cage. Yeah, that's the West Hall Plaza. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Pennant.
Sorry, my eyesight's bad. Are the architects here?
No.
No, they're not. Okay. Will there be a chance to hear from them to hear what the vision might be at some point? Or not the vision, but the actual design, so that, because it's not...
Certainly, we can do that. And just...
It's not.
There is maybe just a bit of the process that I can discuss.
Yeah, that would be good.
We have a number of requirements for the town hall front of house that comes from the town hall team that we need to apply. There is the regulatory requirements in terms of the height of the building, the design of the building. Also, we have engaged with Mana Whenua architects and designers in terms of the Maori design elements of the building and bringing that into place. In terms of the type of cladding, the amount of glazing that we have, the materials, we had RCP overseeing this process, also the quantity surveyors, to make sure whatever we are presenting is within that $28 million. So we have not much flexibility in terms of doing anything luxury. So what we are showing to you is something that is possible and is doable. In terms of the colors, it may change going through the process, but what we are showing is something that we feel is appropriate. We can go through the consenting process, and it may evolve again. Like the minor detail of it can change.
And just my other question was, do Precinct actually have a tenant? Because it's going to be presumably reasonably high-grade office space.
Not that we're aware of.
Councillor Young.
So just, I saw the comment about the shared basement. I presume, as I'm not an architect or anything useful like that, that we're not going to replicate the shared facilities, which was one of the problems with all those buildings before. They had all those shared connections underground.
As far as I'm aware, we're not doing that, correct?
Okay, so the second question, but it's probably a little bit premature, is, you know, the council chambers that, probably Ione is the only person who was in the old council chambers, are they going to be recreated somewhere?
68 JQ.
Huh?
68 JQ.
Great.
I've got one tiny. Sorry, you
There'll
finished.
be modern council chambers in 68 JQ. The crest.
Rob was here.
No, let's not go to the back of the room. So that's all of the questions for this stage. I've just got one small question, and that is that will there be access from the underground car park into the annex?
Yes.
Oh, good.
We will reuse the foundations and the slab and the shaft of the lift that goes to that basement. So
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay.
Right, so a couple of floor plans. So this is the ground floor, and you can see on the left-hand side is Wakefield Street, on the right-hand side is Civic Square. So the big entranceway there, accessible entranceway. Come in, there's basically an area, an open area where people can mingle, can find their way to the main auditorium, can find their way to reception and bar facilities and toilet facilities, etc. And there's a lift, as Faz mentioned before, so again we're reusing the shaft that's already there on the mob site. And then there is a staircase which takes us up to the mezzanine floor, which has a bridge across to the gallery of the town hall, and also has some more hospitality facilities and toilets, etc., and some back of house and plant rooms. So I guess what you kind of sort of imagine is it's like an atrium type building. So it's a high roof atrium building with a mezzanine floor. In essence, yep, correct. Okay, so really the next steps are when we come back on the 12th of June with the heads of terms for the precinct development. And the next steps now for the project team really is finalising the design, including the engagement with Mana Whenua, as Faz was mentioning before, procurement and contracting processes, consenting, and the intent obviously is to start construction as soon as the mob demolition is complete, which at the moment, and I think I say on a slide coming up, is scheduled for September 25, but it works probably fair to say as ahead of schedule. And to be complete by the time that the town hall is ready to open. Okay, and just very briefly on the rest of the program. So Te Matapihi is really getting into its final stages. Completion of the main building is due in August, and we're looking now at planning opening ceremonies, etc. Town hall due for completion mid-26. Various activities will start happening in the town hall from that point forward. So tenants, for example, establishing their spaces and starting to do some of their work in the recording studio, etc. The cab mob demolition, obviously cab's done. Mob, as I mentioned, is due to be September, but it's ahead of schedule. And the negotiation with precinct will be done by June. The overall Tanako development plan needs to be finalised, and we'll be bringing that back to council in July. The basement strengthening work is underway and will be complete in February 26, in time for the opening of the other elements. The gallery work, maintenance and strengthening work is underway and also will be completed in early 26. As you're probably aware, the Capital Lee and City to Sea Bridge, there's a judicial review of the process underway. The court date is set for April for that. The unused creche that's now sitting on Harris Street will be removed and that area beautified as part of the completion of Harris Street as we complete Te Matapihi, the square, and move into the 68 Jervois Quay building. And the Michael Fowler Centre, as you know, has got earthquake-prone building sticker with a regulatory date of September 2033, and we are on track probably to have options to council by October. And there are no plans currently for Jack Islet Green. That's really all that we intended to cover today, unless there are any further questions.
Councillor Pennant.
I presume the options for MFC are coming after the election?
That's what the timing looks like, correct, yes.
Yeah, so literally even possibly just after people are sworn in. Okay, and just on the precinct property again, is the, usually there's two stages to get approval to build new buildings? So the terms, will there be another stage?
There will be heads of terms, and then there will be a development agreement.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Oh, and sorry, the other question I had just was around the City to Sea Bridge. So if the appeal is successful and we have to go around and do consultation, what will that do to the rest of the works that you're trying to get done?
So that would depend on whatever the findings of the court are and when those findings are released. One of the points I think that we have made and are making as part of this process is ultimately our objective across this entire set of projects was to try and get all of these facilities back in the hands of the public so the public can enjoy them and use them, because that's what they're there for and that's what the money's been invested to achieve. And as a result, we have moved quickly on some of these projects. Uncertainty around timing of that particular part, it creates risk and impact in our ability to bring the whole thing back to life. Having said that, there's obviously two possible outcomes for council with where we end up with the City to Sea Bridge. Irrespective of anything, the Capital E building has to be dealt with. It's earthquake-prone building. There's a requirement to do that. We have got, in essence, we have thought through a backup plan that if we are to remain with the bridge for an extended period of time, or for all time, what do we need to do in order to reopen and enliven the full facility so that the public can enjoy it in the shortest possible time? So we have started thinking about an alternate plan if need be. Yeah.
Councillor Free.
Yeah, I just want to know about landscaping. Is there a landscape plan for the whole area? Or if there isn't, will there be one?
There is one in the concept design, and it will be finalised when we finish these buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Randall.
Thank you. I guess in terms of the court challenge, I was wondering whether the basement strengthening, the issue of proceeding with it has been discussed with the challengers, and with what was the situation? Are they challenging that piece of work, or is that like separate from where their challenge is at? And can it proceed with irrespective of what happens, or what?
So we came to an arrangement, a legal arrangement, whereby it was very clear what was demarked for the jurisdiction of the court to intervene on, and where we could continue work. And so we've been able to move forward with the basement strengthening and also with the loading dock.
Yeah, okay. And if the strengthening continues as a separate isolated item, how much would that cost? Have you worked out the cost of that yet, or is it? Because I know there's very indicative cost of like $1 million or $3 million or something.
Oh, you mean the loading dock?
The loading dock, fixing up the loading dock basement bit, yeah.
Currently, we are in the design process of the methodology of the strengthening, and there's a number of methodologies. As soon as we have a methodology, then we can cost it accurately in terms of what is.
But that's not there yet.
Not yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, two questions. Obviously, City Gallery are planning a pretty major event to reopen that space, which is contingent on there being no works for City to Sea. So I just want to confirm you guys are actively working around what happens in that instance with their ability to bring an international level event into this square.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like what I was hinting at before, is the timing of the judicial review and where it goes to at the end of that may have ramifications which ultimately impact the public's ability to use these facilities. But there's no way that we can get out of that. So we're trying to do our best to think of alternate plans, etc., to have as minimal impact as possible. But to some extent, we're in the hands of the judicial process.
Yep. And just confirming the saving is essentially being redirected to fill the bucket of Begonia House as per the LTP resolution.
That's your decision, I believe.
I've got two small questions. One is, when are you actually going to start digging up the plaza to lay the new ceiling of the car park?
Cool. Can you hear that? Awesome.
Yep.
So we were planning to start within the next couple of weeks, but we've been pushed back until early April just to sort of sequence ourselves with mob and the works that are happening in the town hall. So a couple of weeks later, it's going to be April when we start pulling up the pavers.
Thanks. And this isn't a question about that, so you can sit down again if you like. With the savings you've managed to achieve, which I guess it's up to our discretion as to whether we bank that or whether we squander it on something like the Begonia House. But if we, will we also be able to perhaps consider using some of those funds towards a new city museum in the precinct, given the problems that we've got with the existing structure? Would that be something that we could actually sort of put on the table as a use of that capital? A simple yes will do.
I think you can do whatever you want, Councillor.
Thank you. That's it. No more questions? Pardon? That's it, I think. Thank you very much. That was great. Oh, sorry. We've got one from a Councillor Rapanowitz. You get the last question. That was your fault.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, guys.